Welcome to today's Chefs Forum. On behalf of American Culinary Federation, we're delighted to collaborate with one of our wonderful association partners today and want to welcome all of the ANFP members tuning in for this exciting presentation featuring culinary experts representing our organizations. We know it's so important for food service and nutrition professionals to connect, to share, and to offer ideas, which is exactly why we're excited to host this very, very cool session just for you, the leaders of the culinary, hospitality, and healthcare industries. I'm Jackie Pressinger, ACF's Director of Strategic Partnerships, and I hope you're ready for a great demonstration. Before we begin, please note our special guests will be taking questions from you as they're able. So please use the chat function to collaborate with other viewers and the Q&A function to pose questions to today's speakers. Okay, so let's get that conversation going in the chat. If you haven't already, please let us know where you're tuning in from today. And at this time, I'll pass the presentation over to Cindy Zemko, Vice President of Professional Development and Member Services at the Association of Nutrition and Food Service Professionals. Thanks, Cindy.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jackie. Again, we are so excited to collaborate with ACF, where we can bring you these valuable education opportunities. So today I'm delighted to welcome our featured culinary presenters for an exciting demo focusing on healthy holiday dining. So with us today, we have Chef Adam Hagar. He's a culinary instructor at Columbus State Community College School of Hospitality Management and Culinary Arts with a specialization in culinary science. He started his career with a Darden restaurant group before moving over to senior living. Chef Adam holds an MBA and is credentialed with both ANFP as a CDM CFPP and ACF as a CEC and CWPC. He also authored the book, The Bake Shop, in collaboration with Chef Diane Souza through grant funding to reduce textbook costs to the students in the chef apprenticeship program and other programs around the world. So thank you for being here, Chef Adam. We also have with us Dr. Milton McGowian. Milton has worked in the culinary industry for over 30 years and has been in senior living industry for over 20 years. He currently serves as the Vice President of Resident Services at Sharon Towers at South Park in Charlotte, North Carolina. He's also CDM CFPP. Milton's volunteer resume consists of numerous committee positions with ANFP and other organizations. He's also a board member of the Nutrition and Food Service Education Foundation and a director at large for the Leading Age North Carolina Board. Milton holds a doctorate degree in business administration, nonprofit leadership, and management. So welcome, Milton. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our presenters.
Hello, hello. How are we doing today? Hey, Chef.
Hey, Milton. How are you today?
I'm doing great. We are looking forward to some exciting cuisines.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I said we're looking forward to some exciting cuisines today.
All right. Well, I can tell you that I've spent the day working on what I'm going to lay out for you today. You know, when it comes to the holidays, I start thinking of the different flavors and how can I make things just a little bit easier on myself when it comes to hosting, whether it's at my house for the 16 people that I invite to come over, or maybe I'm working at a Mother's Day brunch and I have to set out a reception. And then I have my other cooks and chefs that are helping me out throughout this. But, you know, I approach this with reception, sides, and then the dessert. So the start, the middle, and the finish, right? And so I chose three things that I rather enjoy doing. Some of my favorite things that I would send out to folks in the industry if they were coming to my hotel, country club, or even my assisted living center. I remember the conversation we were having the other day in Milton about, hey, the boomers, they're aging. They're starting to come into our nursing homes. They're starting to come into our assisted living centers, and they're expecting a higher quality menu. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, and I agree. I think that the boomers are expecting a high quality menu. They've traveled the world, they've been everywhere, and they expect to come into their senior living communities and have chefs prepare their meals. So I'm really excited about chefs being in those communities. And also the holiday times are so special. And I know that, when we get towards the holiday with family and friends, we really come together to really put together a great spread. So I'm really excited about the spread you're going to present to us today.
I am. There's a couple things up here, some menu items up here on the countertop that I'm going to demo and I'm going to roll through. And again, these are things that can be done well in advance, but it's a little bit hot, a little bit of cold, room temperature, thinking about all the different things that are going on. So trying to keep it healthy, but keeping the boomer generation that's coming in mind as well. I've chosen to do a little bit of charcuterie today. And then we've got a crudité, classic crudité platter. But the thing that I want to demo for you folks is a brie wrapped in puff pastry. We're going to do a little bake. Something just a little bit different that can be used across the board with charcuterie or whether it's with the crudité. So, just a quick introduction of what's going on here. We have your standard crudité, batignon carrots and celery. And then I've got a little vermicelli parsnip right here. I love my Japanese mandolin. It's the best thing ever if you want to do garnishes. And some marinated tomatoes, cucumbers, English cucumbers, and then 2 different kinds of peppers, right? Your traditional classic crudité. We could have probably put some broccoli on there or something like that along the lines. Now, coming over here to my charcuterie board though, this is my thing, all right? This is my special, this is my holidays. This is what I enjoy when it comes to it. And I will name drop a company here local in Columbus, Ohio. He's a friend of mine. He's been around we competed on the culinary team together when I was a student. And he's got a very successful business. And so what you're looking at here is some artisan charcuterie. Now this one right here is going to be his chorizo. This is North Country charcuterie. So James Forbes created this spreadable chorizo. Goes really good with an egg frittata or something like that. This is his lupo. This is a cured sausage. This one's got a local Wolf's Ridge Brewery beer, a dark stout in there. And then this is his fino. This has a nice little note of fennel pollen. And then we have our roasted peppers, our marinated artichokes, our Kalamata olives, pepperoncini, toasted pistachios, and Maricon almonds. Kind of just rounds everything out. The reason these are here, right? This is your start with a little bit of bread, baguette, ciabatta bread, the brie. For me, when I'm doing the holidays, I'm the one that's doing all the cooking. My wife helps me out a lot when it comes to this stuff. But, once everybody starts showing up, then we have to play hostess, right? And so these are nice things to set out and have ready for them. Pop your puff pastry and brie in the oven about 30-45 minutes before your guests come. Be nice and hot, ooey and gooey, excuse me. And just let them snack on this stuff while you're finishing up dinner, right? So
Chef, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that the brie was going to be ooey and gooey. I always know that the brie was nicknamed the Queen of Cheese and often served to royalty. My question is, would you have to utilize a triple cream brie to get that gooiness?
No, I mean, brie is soft enough on its own, and the mold that they have around the edge of it, holds that stuff in. So no, I wouldn't say that you would have to have a triple cream. I mean, I've done this with stuff that I bought from the local grocery store, which is maybe not the best quality than some classic French brie. So it's the texture of the cream itself, the brie itself, it'll lend itself well to it. As long as it doesn't have any stabilizers in it, if it's not like a very poor quality brie. But of course, we know to call something specifically, say, brie or Roquefort, it better be what it's supposed to be, right? So,
yeah, and that's really good to hear because, a lot of us will go out and purchase brie and we want to duplicate this at our homes during the holidays for our families. And I just wanted to ensure we didn't have any roadblocks. So I'm excited to hear that we could duplicate this at our homes for our families.
Oh, everything that we're doing here today, look, I meant to say this earlier to you. I appreciate your time, and I hope you don't think that this is just too rudimentary for some of those more advanced chefs out there. But, you know, I recognize that there's different skill sets for everybody, right? Some people, you know, we have staff that maybe don't have the culinary skills that we can afford to pay top dollar for. And then we have the country club chefs. We have those chefs that, you know, we have a budget for that, you know? So I'm trying to keep this all in mind for you. So nothing up here is overly hard. It's not very expensive. I mean, if you can find your right purveyors and all that good stuff. What we have in here underneath these two pieces of parchment paper is my puff pastry. Now you'll see that mine looks a lot different because I just went to my local grocery store and grabbed, of course, the puff pastry that I needed, or grabbed everything I needed tonight. But what I want to do with this is just roll it a little thinner, right?
No, chef, you put it in between the two pieces of parchment. What's the purpose of that?
I did because, you know, as a pastry chef in training, you know, it was never add more flour than you need to, right? So I have Chef Souza and I have other chefs that they'll use some pan spray or something for their for rolling out their puff pastries. I just chose to do it in between because this is a pretty sturdy product. It's not going to stick. I mean, I'm in a pretty cold room right now, so yeah. No, go ahead.
No, and I'm glad you said that because I think when you add flour, you're adding more of an ingredient to the item. And even when you utilize pan spray or some types of oil, you're still adding an ingredient to that. But by using the parchment paper, it allows you to roll it out, keep it from sticking, but you're not adding an extra ingredient in. So I think that's a really great tip.
Well, we all know that flour has gluten in it.
Yes.
And of course, the more you play with it, the more you mess with it, the tougher your product is going to be, right? So we try not to add more flour than what we need in there. We don't want it to be dry. We don't want it to be tough. And all those excellent pastry chefs that are online right now, they know exactly what I'm talking about. So what I did here is I just got my little brie wheel and I brushed it with some egg wash because what I want it to stick to this puff pastry, right? I want to give it that, I want to make sure that during the leavening process, right, that it stays connected to the wheel of brie. And again, you know, puff pastry, it's an amazing thing. You can use it for just about anything. It's like that versatile thing in a kitchen that we have, like pâte à choux, profiterole, eclair, boule au vent for the puff pastry. I mean, I like to play with pastries. People ask me all the time, what do you like to cook? And I like to cook, I really do. But my favorite thing is baking. It's very challenging. There's a science to it.
And chef, you know, I love that you chose brie. Every time I visit a function or I go to an event and I walk in and I'll see that brie sitting there and there's a really artistic shapes and sizes to the puff pastry, it lets me know that that's like a really elegant event. And I feel like, oh man, this is like a really good event. They have like great food and this brie looks really delicious. And I think it'll make individuals who do this in their homes for their families, it'll make it really look good. And it'll say that, hey, this is a special occasion. So we're going to really break out the stops. So I'm glad you chose this item because it's very savory. And I think people will really enjoy it.
Now, yeah, exactly. And we can turn this brie. It's like a blank canvas, right? We can turn this into anything we want. I chose to just wrap it in puff pastry today. But if you just start looking online, right, just take a look at it. You'll find people that are using apricot preserves, cherry preserves. You can build this to your own liking. There are no recipes today, folks, for any of this stuff. This is designed to for you to be as creative as you want to be with it, right? And being creative, I decided I wanted to have a little bit of leaf. I wanted to have a little texture to the surface of this. I wanted to bring it up a little bit because I have extra puff pastry, and I can tell you right now, folks, I do not like to throw things away, so I try to utilize things 100%. So, you know, hey, Amazon, we got some little seasonal festive cutters that in leaf shape and leaf, acorn, etc. It's got a little spring to it. I love it. Just push it out. And now we have our little leaf. Little fondant cutters is what I knew these as a culinary student.
You know, I think the cutters are a great tool. You know, coming up with those special shapes and it looks right on the money. You know, trying to carve anything just by hand can be very difficult. So I think using the cutters kind of really puts that ending stamp as a garnish on that brie.
Yeah. Now, got a little bit of egg wash here that we're just going to brush over top. We want to make sure that we keep this kind of thin, right? We don't want to have any, if we don't scramble our eggs enough in the bowl, then we end up with a little bit sitting on top and mounting. So let's make sure we smooth this out a lot, right? And then what we'll do is just pick your design that you want to do, right? So this package of pastry cutters that I got came with 4. So I was like, well, let's just use 4. Let's see what this looks like when it's done with it. Yeah. Now, we'll give these a quick little brush as well. Again, make sure you kind of smooth that out a little bit. You don't want anything mounting up on there. But we all know from working with eggs, one of the most versatile things in the kitchen, what? The pleats in the chef hat, as they say, is designed that 1,000 different ways to cook eggs in the kitchen, right?
Yes.
And so when you understand how how eggs work, we have our Maillard reaction that's going to take place on this, and it's going to give us a nice caramel color to it. We like to use the word caramelization, but we got a little Maillard reaction going on here. It's going to have a nice shine to it. It's going to be glazy, and we're going to have a very attractive looking finished dish here. So let me get this cleaned up a little bit, and we'll go ahead and through the magic of TV, right, folks?
So, Chef, how long does the brie take to cook in the oven for the size that you're presenting today?
So we do it at 400 degrees for about 35, 40 minutes. We want to make sure that we have this nice, evenly brown shape going on, or color going on, right?
Wow, that looks great.
But then, like, again, these pictures or the leaves just add another layer of effect to it. I don't know what word I'm looking for on this, but you know, I mean, a little artisanal look to it, right? But the rest of this, again, French baguette, then we have our ciabatta bread, and so this is the first thing. This is what we would start with. The guests can come, they can eat on this all they want while we're finishing up and doing the rest of the dinner.
Yeah, it's a great appetizer. I mean, it's a great starter. I mean, it's a conversation piece. People are standing around the brie, they're eating it, they're checking out the artisticness of it. So it looks very good.
Thank you, Chef. And so, what does the holidays mean to you?
So, you know, holidays to me are all about family. You know, I was traveling to Indiana last week, and I heard something I've never heard before from one of the presenters at Purdue University. And he said, I love the holidays. I love the chaos of the kitchen. I love, you know, family coming in and we're all talking and having a great time. Nobody's upset about anything. We're enjoying food. Those memories of smelling aromas in the kitchen bring back positive vibes with family you haven't seen in years. As most of the time your family's spread out. So when you do come together and meet, it's over food, it's over ham, it's over turkey, it's over dressing. It's, you know, we enjoy those things while we're talking. So to me, the holidays is a time for me to reconnect with family members, reconnect with friends, and laugh and forget about anything that's going on in our life because we have this great food in front of us and we're able to savor it and talk about the best times that we've had in our life. And the holidays just kind of brings that out. And I think it's special, and I look forward to Thanksgiving and I look forward to Christmas and New Year's because that's the time where I can really enjoy myself with the people I care about.
Yeah, we are going into that time of year where people will start taking time off of work and they'll just be spending time with family. Or well, maybe we won't be taking time off of work. There's a lot of things that Everybody's a little bit different, but you know, family and friends, and just bringing a little bit of my family and my traditions to, I don't know, the people that I'm serving in this industry, right? The next thing we're going to move into is our, you know, I have a great mentoring chef. I was talking to him the other day because we're kind of colleagues now here at Columbus State. And I was like, you know, I'm going to do my stuffing, my side dish, right? And, you know, I like my sausage stuffing. And he was like, well, you know what you should do? You should do a bread pudding. Nobody ever thinks to do savory bread pudding. And I said, all right, chef, your call, I'll do it. And so that's what we're going to do today. Now, you know, again, if I was at home doing this, I would make sure that it would be done in a hotel pan or something along the line so that everybody can do a self-service. But there's other things that are out there, right? Maybe you have to do a self-service bar, a buffet, or some kind of event where, you know, it just makes more sense to have these things individually portioned out. I like to do individual things. I like to make sure things look small, nice, petite, right? So what we're going to do now, if you want a recipe for this one, visit kingarthur.com and just type in savory bread puddings, because that's where I got this recipe from. Sometimes it's just, you just can't beat what you find online. But I will tell you, you know, you just got to be able to learn what those ingredients are about. That way, if you see a recipe, maybe you have to make some changes to it. And we'll talk about the pumpkin pie a little bit later on when it comes to adding and subtracting. Will sugar affect it or won't sugar affect it? Because, I mean, a lot of this stuff might not look so healthy, folks, but it is, right? I've chosen recipes that, well, you can be creative with it. And if you don't want to use heavy cream, like we're going to use in this one, use milk. I use chicken stock, use some eggs, right? Get a good quality bread. If you are a gluten-free person, if you're sensitive to gluten, by all means, find your favorite gluten-free bread and do the same thing with it, right? So to this, I've got 2 eggs and an egg yolk.
Okay.
We're going to break this up a little bit.
So, chef, what's the purpose of 2 whole eggs and 1 egg yolk?
The egg yolk is going to provide us a little bit more creaminess to this, right? The heavy cream that we're going to put in here is going to give a little bit more creamy to it. You'll find things like pastry cream will call for whole eggs, but then they'll call for a couple extra yolks. There's a lot of different custards, and that's what we're playing with today. We're making a custard today. There's a lot of different custards out there that will call for extra yolks. Now,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Can you also tell us what the difference is from using whole eggs as you just used, as far as quality from using eggs that are already in the carton? Can you tell us, is there a difference from using those types of eggs versus whole shell eggs?
Oh, well, chef, these are whole shell eggs. I just got my mise en place together today, right? So rather than staying here cracking eggs for you, I'm sure you all know how to crack an egg. I decided I was just going to get them out of the shell and not have to worry about that.
Oh, no doubt. Oh, no, I know you use whole eggs. I guess my question was, can you tell us if I'm at home and I decide to take a shortcut and use the carton, will there be a difference in the recipe?
Oh, well, yeah, no, I don't think so, chef. I mean, okay. I know why they put the extra egg yolk in here, and it's for the creaminess that would come through. But I mean, if you had something like easy eggs, I guess, sorry, that's the product I worked with a lot when I was in the industry.
Okay.
Easy eggs already broken up in the carton. You can use that as well. You will know, right? Everybody online knows that when you're working with baked goods, everything's always going to be better in a weighted form versus volume form. Okay. This particular case is counted each, but I mean, if you play with this one time and then weigh out how much eggs you have in here, you'll always be able to replicate this perfectly every time.
Gotcha. I love the savory bread pudding. As a kid, I grew up eating bread pudding and it had, it had raisins and it had all these different things in it. And when I was a kid, I didn't really appreciate it. But as I got older, it became so succulent to me. We made it sweet. We put different types of cinnamons and sugars in it. So I'm really happy to see that you're recreating this savory bread pudding, because it is a great, great staple, growing up when I was a kid.
We're getting there. Trust me. I think we're all on the same page. And I didn't want to go crazy today and start doing all kinds of, look, I sit through these webinars and I watched the things that the chefs do, and it's very impressive. But for something like what we're talking about today, I think the classics, the traditional, the parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme that we're used to smelling and being in our kitchen. And then every once in a while, we'll go ahead and, you know, throw in a little something extra, right? But I want to stay with the classics today. Now, what I just added in here was a half a cup of heavy cream and 1 cup of chicken stock. And I told you folks, I don't like to throw anything away. So I squared out my celery and my carrots, right? And all those trims ended up in my chicken stock so I can make it a little bit more flavorful, right? My onion as well. Now what I have over here cooking is some sausage, some pork sausage, you know what, I think it's Bob Evans sausage, right? That I had bought from the grocery store. I've already cooked it off, save a little bit of time on our call today. I'm sweating some celery, carrots, and onions, our mirepoix, right? I just want to get a little bit of, I want to sweat it. I want to get it cooked because I need it to, I don't want a bunch of crunchy stuff in my bread pudding, right? So we're going to go ahead and cook this down.
Chef, I really love the way you utilize product. I think, you know, in this day and time with inflation, I think it's important to kind of cross-utilize everything because they're still ingredients. So just throwing something away doesn't make sense. It's just, you know, it's just waste that, you know, you could utilize. So I really love how you're cross-utilizing everything.
Well, thank you. Now, I mean, this is, I guess, when I'm at the holiday party, like this is my favorite part right here, right? The stuffing. And then, like I said, we got our little parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme in here. Now, folks, I mean, you know what you like. I know what I like. As long as you have enough of something, add until your heart desires, right? The one thing I do got to caution you about, because the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to fast track this a little bit because I want to make sure that you can see me do it from start to finish, right? You want to make sure that this has time to cool down, right? Mm-hmm. If we take this and add it to our egg, cream, milk mixture, we're gonna kind of scramble our eggs a little bit, right? And on top of that, this recipe says that you need to let it sit for about an hour or overnight. Of course, we don't have that kind of time going on, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and add this in here. And I just sauteed that in a little bit of vegetable oil. You like olive oil to get those monounsaturated fats in your system. You like heavy cream, right? You like butter? Go for it. So what we'll do is just let this soak it up, absorb it, season everything to taste, right? Of course, if you're going to eat raw eggs, you might want to make sure that you have pasteurized eggs in your facility or at home.
Yeah, while you're doing that, I do have a question. How do you plan your holiday menus? Where do you find your inspiration for new dishes? I mean, being a chef, you've seen it all. You see all the food, you work with it, you taste it. How do you as a chef find inspiration for holiday menu items for family members?
Sitting through webinars like this, I find it very interesting. I am in a situation in my life where Columbus State is very supportive of me and everything and anything I want to do, right? Because I need to take this stuff that I learned from you folks out there, all you chefs out there, and I need to bring it back to my classroom. I need to stay relevant. I need to stay up to date on what's going on. So a lot of this stuff is, what do I feel like doing today? What do I want to learn new in my day? And so last week I was sitting on one of these webinars and there was a chef that was working on, how do you pronounce it? Yuzu, right? And I watched that webinar and it was one of those things, it was a yuzu tart. And I was like, he made a French meringue and very nice, very neat, very clean. He just used biscuit cutters to pipe his meringue in there, level it off on top. And then he had what do we call these things? A branding iron that had a very nice little flower shape to it at the end. Dipped it in a little water, put it on top of the meringue, slid that biscuit cutter up, very nice and clean. You saw the layers of everything that was going on. And then he just torched it. And that that branding iron imprint was there. Very attractive. Things that I've never known before. So we'll take that to the classroom in my baking class in the summertime, right? And as far as planning the holiday menus, Doctor, it's one of those things. I don't try and recreate the wheel, right? I know what I like. I know what my family likes. I know what we grew up on. And I don't feel that anybody out there that I'm cooking this for, whether it be in an assisted living center or in a country club, I don't think they'll disagree with these flavors that are put together, right? I don't know.
I agree. I think the flavors make sense. I think they connect with individuals. And, it's always exciting to do new recipes and also do old recipes with family members. That's what makes the holidays so special. So we're just excited to kind of learn new things. And I love what you're doing and how you're putting this together, step by step, because I know it could be duplicated at our homes.
I'm going to add something to what we were just talking about. Well, and it was, how do I come up with these things? The ACF is a very good place for certifications. Each level, and I've been through several levels of the ACF certification. I started out as a certified sous chef. Then I went through their old certified chef de cuisine. Now I'm a certified executive chef. I was a certified pastry culinary, and I was a certified working pastry chef. And through each of those levels, you learn a little bit about yourself, and you learn so many new techniques. Like 5 years after culinary school, it's like, that's what I've been doing wrong this whole time, right? Because I'll be the first to tell you, folks, I don't know everything.
I agree with that. I mean, every time you go to a different place or to a different level in your career, you learn something new. And that's what's so exciting, like, especially with culinary, like, even if you're at a really high level and then you'll go visit a chef or you go visit an organization, you'll be like, wow, I can't believe that. I just learned that. That is so cool. That's a great way to do this. So that's why I really support these webinars and these trainings and learning, because it gives people a chance to create something nice and new for not only at their home, but also for their organization. How exciting is it to go back to work and say, hey, I got something new I want to try. And you try and it's a success. So I applaud it, and I think it's great. And I think as we move forward in our careers and with others, we can continue to learn new things and see great things that are being presented to us.
I have been truly blessed in my culinary career. I've had the opportunity to work for some great chefs, and I've had the opportunity just to learn as I go. Most of the places that I worked at required me to have some kind of basic culinary math knowledge, right? I'm feeding 100 people today. I'm feeding 1,000 people today.
Right.
And they trusted me to play with their food. And as long as the guests were happy in that 100-bed facility, or those 1,000 people were happy with the food that I put out, they always gave me the freedom to do kind of whatever I wanted to do. And it was really nice.
Love that.
Great chefs that I worked for in the past. Now, this recipe on kingarthur.com, right? This is your savory bread pudding. It called for mushrooms. It called for some garlic, some white wine. Again, this is another one of those things where it's a blank canvas. You like mushrooms, put some mushrooms in there. You want to add a little bit of wine. You want to add a little bit of flavor. This can be whatever you want it to be. The important thing is, and these are the things that I focus on when I'm working. You ask me how I come up with things. The ratio, right, of bread versus egg versus the stock versus the heavy cream, right? And if I know those ratios, if I know how much things weigh, like 1 cup of sugar is going to weigh approximately 7 ounces. 1 cup of all-purpose flour weighs 4.25 ounces, right? If I know those things, then I can be as creative as I want to be, because I understand how the ratios of baking and pastries work, or in this case, crusty dry bread. And how much is it going to soak up? Do I want dry stuffing or do I want a really wet stuffing, right? So
Chef, that segues into a question from the audience. The question is, for consistency, do you add egg yolk when using easy eggs?
You know what? If it's in a weighted form, then no, I wouldn't do that. For consistency's sake, right? I mean, like I said, I've been truly blessed in my career. So we do have standardized recipes, and we do have a budget we have to stick to, right? You know, one egg, 1.75 ounces, right, times 2, and the yolk's probably about an ounce. If I know that stuff, and I know that I have approximately, we'll say, 3.5 ounces of eggs, I would use 3.5 ounces of easy egg or eggs in the carton, right? Just so I could be consistent with whatever the standardized recipe is. I do not believe that it would affect it too much in this recipe, though, folks. You're going to do it with a pastry cream. I do believe that would affect it. So I would stick to that recipe, right?
Okay, makes sense.
All right.
Love that. Looks great. And I love the individuals, like you said, the small, petite. You know, sometimes you see a lot of things in bulk and it's really big. I love when things are kind of individualized and people can have their own. I just think it takes that elegance to the next level.
Yeah, you know, I mean, do what works for you and what works for the situation you're in. I mean, a nice little hot plate with a whole bunch of ramekins of bread pudding looks pretty attractive.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're at a hotel buffet and that's what you have, and you got your hotel pans, then by all means, do what you have to do.
Most definitely. You know, having those options is great. It allows people to cook kind of the way they are and in the moment. So whatever is presented to them, they can still get the job done. So I like having the options.
Exactly. Now, take your gloves off, wash your hands, folks, right? So I'm gonna step away for 1 second, wash your hands.
Gotcha. Oh, looks great, man. I mean, really appreciate you starting with those 2 items. You know, I was thinking about the crudité. I know you mentioned crudité earlier. You know, that's something that's really healthy. And to me, crudité means raw things. And I love having that option to have like fresh vegetables, maybe visiting a farmer's market, you know, getting some fresh items like celery and carrots. I think it gives people a chance to eat those healthy vegetables kind of during the time that they really don't, especially during the holidays. We often find ourselves, you know, eating the turkey and the ham and the sweet potato. So having that fresh vegetable crudité is so important. And also being able to dip it in like a vinaigrette or dip it in some type of flavorful dressing. I think it really kind of sets the tone for the rest of the meal.
Yeah, I let your imagination run wild with that. Like with the brie, you could add a little bit of apricot preserve to it, or add some nuts, add some dried fruits in there that maybe you've rehydrated in your favorite brandy or something like that. But as far, I mean, with the crudité, hey, some ranch dressing, blue cheese dressing, whatever tickles your fancy. The charcuterie, I've got stone ground mustards. That's one of my favorite German mustards. My wife is German, and her father comes and visits us regularly, so we do spatzel and schnitzel and all that good stuff. And I always pull out the charcuterie.
Yes.
He loves that stuff. You know, whatever you feel makes your guest happy, right?
So Chef, you mentioned the brie again. So I did have a follow-up question from the audience about the brie. The question was, how do you know how long to heat so that it doesn't ooze out completely as soon as you cut into it?
Say that one more time.
So the audience asked, how do you know how long to cook the brie so when you first cut into it, it doesn't ooze out all over the place?
I followed the recipe. You know, the puff pastry works by, of course, leavening, right? We have steam leavening is exactly what we're working with. And so you got layers of, you know, butter and fat or whatever else is in this stuff. So how do I know when the brie is done? When I've got the appearance that I'm looking for, the crispy, flaky appearance of your puff pastry with the Maillard reaction, the browning effect that's going on there. And I've got industry standards. I always, even at home, I stick to the industry standards, right? Evenly browned around the corners, like you see going on right there.
Yes.
I believe it's done. And I don't think that the brie is going to be ooey and gooey and be ruined on the inside of it when it's all said and done.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Thank you for answering that.
I will answer any of your questions.
Thank you.
All
All right,
right.
what you got next for us?
Next course, dessert, the final course, right? Convenience products, right? I mean, some of you can do the great pastry pie crust, which I gotta say, folks, this is my favorite part of the pie, right? The pie crust, it's done right. It's got that browning, it's got that crispness to it. That's my favorite part. I mean, the filling is good, right? I mean, that's kind of why we buy the pie. But you know, convenience products are a good way to go, right? When you don't have those skills, those skilled workers that you need to do pies from scratch, right? I will tell you today, we've done a pumpkin pie with a chantilly cream on top. That's what we have here. We got 6 of those. And it is the recipe that's on the can of Libby's Pumpkin, right? It is a 12-ounce can of condensed milk, 3/4 of a cup of sugar. And then we have the ginger, the cinnamon, etc. And then it's got 2 eggs in it. Anyway, you can read the can. But, you know, title of this demonstration, right? You want to be a little healthier when it comes to this stuff. Look, brie, not an unhealthy cheese. 20% protein in there, not a lot of fat. So, I mean, pros and cons there. And then we have our stuffing. You can pick and choose how you saute your vegetables, how much vegetables goes in there, so your dietary fiber and all that. And then when it comes to this pumpkin pie tartlet that we have today, look, I chose not to add the sugar to this recipe like it called for. So you can fluctuate those recipes because, again, understanding the function of the ingredients in the food. Those eggs are in this pie or this pie filling for coagulation to help it set up. The sugar's there to help it sweeten up a little bit. You don't need all that sugar that they asked for in the recipe. Although I will caution you, these have no sugar in it, so you better have a nice chantilly cream that's got a little bit of sugar in there, make it kind of offset that balance of, well, it's just straight pumpkin with some spice and a little bit of sugar. So play with that recipe, do what you will. I would start with half the amount of sugar in it if you're trying to watch your sugar intake, or if you have residents that may need to watch their sugar intake. And we're just going to do this. We're going to go through the basics of just making the tart ready for baking, right?
So chef, question. So I understand you mentioned convenience product, and I totally agree with that. You know, sometimes, you know, you don't have to reinvent the wheel on certain products. But let me ask you about like the pie dough. So, you know, in my former days, we would always do the 1, 2, 3. You know, it'd be the fat, the flour, and the water for pie dough. Is that something that could be done using that type of recipe for this type of item?
Well, I'll tell you, yes, chef, because it's always been 1, 2, 3, right? That's how it works. That's how I was taught. And if you want a little tender pie crust, we add a little bit of vinegar in there. You'll never taste it. Now, the reason I chose convenience today, right, is, hey, there's a lot of different options out there. I will say that convenience products are, they're a good way to go when you don't have the skill going on, but you don't necessarily brown as much as I would like them to, right?
Okay.
So
I know you're using pumpkin in this particular recipe, but let's say somebody said, you know what, I know it's the holidays, you know, pumpkin, I know, you know, we've had it, we've done it a lot. Is this a suitable substitute that could be used in this same recipe if you chose not to utilize pumpkin?
you know, my wife and I do a lot of apple picking together. And if I had a decent apple pie recipe, I would still do this. Do a little caramel apple pie tart, perhaps. So look, I mean, the pie crust itself, I mean, that's the vessel for the fillings, right? So your imagination can run wild. You just know, you just got to be aware that, you know, some of these pie recipes may require that you have to do some blind baking, right? Versus putting it straight in the oven. Like this one, make the pie crust, make the filling, put it in the oven. It was like, I think it was like 425 degrees, and then we drop it down to 350 and let it finish until it's done. You know, if we're using a pot brise, a pot sucre that we would want to blind bake, then just recognizing that. I will say, I guess this is my stage to say what I say to my students all the time, right? When you know the fundamentals, when you know the technique, and when you know how food works, read those recipes, right? Be able to pull out those words, whipping, creaming, folding, roasting, braising, sauteing, sweating, rendering, all those words that we use every day, like it's second nature. When you know how to do those things, you'll never have to look at a recipe again. Baking and pastries, odd little bird, right? I need to know what the quantity of ingredients are in there in that recipe. But I don't need to stand there and read 3 pages of instructions to make a sponge cake or to make a genoise sponge, because I know how to do it, right? And that's what I want my students to get to before they leave, because then they're not going to be 5, 10 years out of culinary school like, oh,
Yes.
that's what I keep doing wrong.
No, I agree. I mean, I think what you just said totally makes sense, Chef. And I know some people might think pumpkin is kind of overdone or we do it a lot, but I will say for healthy eating that pumpkin is high in potassium. And that's something that's important. And, you know, just 1 cup of pumpkin contains 16% of your recommended amount of potassium. So, you know, it is healthy. It is good for you, low in sugar. So it is something that could really benefit you as far as, you know, when you're eating a lot of savory and sweet foods over the holidays. This could be something you could really enjoy and not have to worry about, you know, some of the added calories that could be put on. So I think the potassium part, which helps heart disease, and that's so important in this day and time, and it's a delicious item. So I'm okay with the pumpkin, but I know sometimes people want other items to be added in there. So I think having our imaginations run wild is great. You do apple, you do peach, you know, you can really take upon some of these great fruits, blueberries, and really have a great tart.
The chefs in the audience, if this is your first time at one of these webinars, you learn something new every time. Didn't know. I knew that pumpkin was high in acid, which was nice for getting proteins to denature and all that good stuff. Did not know it was all great in potassium. I'm like, Milton just filled us in on that. So thank you for that, Chef.
Sure, most definitely. You know, a lot of times the foods are, you know, we look at them and we cook them, but it's always good to know which ones really benefit us. So I just think it's important to have that information.
Well, I mean, to know that it's high in potassium, right? Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I mean, if you have residents that are on a renal diet, they have to watch their potassium level, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. So you'd be working with your dietetic technicians and then your dietary managers, et cetera, to make sure that the residents get the best quality of care.
So, Chef, I have another question from the audience.
Yes.
So the question is, what are some trends in healthcare food service do you see gaining traction for menus in 2024? So I guess I can kind of answer that as well. Go ahead.
No, yeah, it goes back to our conversation the other day, Milton. You reminded me that we're at the stage where boomers are starting to come in to the assisted living, and they are. And I don't want to steal your thunder here, but they're the ones that are seasoned. They've been traveling all over the world, right? When I was in the industry, when I was working in assisted living centers, it was very much a meat and potato kind of thing. I want my meatloaf, I want my ham loaf, I want mashed potato, I want just the traditional classic thing. But what we're doing today, right, I think this is where your trends are going to start moving towards. They want the Thai, they want the Italian, and they want it to be, you know, rather good quality. They don't want some frozen lasagna from a box anymore, right? They want the quality products. They want to know that you're sourcing your food from local sources if you can. Now, look, only you know that you're going to be, only you know what your budget is and who you can and can't work with, you know, so some of this stuff might be out of your reach. Other chefs, this is below you. I don't know. But I mean, you know, I would start looking at regional, international cuisines and how to properly cook those and those cooking techniques so that you can meet the demand of the people that are coming in your doorway. Probably right now, right?
Yeah, Chef, that's a great point. And, you know, my answer would be there's a lot of different generations inside of healthcare right now. There's different generations. And these individuals have eaten all around the world and everywhere. But we must also be considerate of the ones who just want that meat and potatoes, like Chef just mentioned, because you'll have a community where you offer different items, but you need to be sure you cover all your bases. You know, have your venue that serves the high-end food that people enjoy. have your venue that serves the casual food that people enjoy, and then have your formal dining that serves those meat and potato items, because the menus will trend with what people want. And when you have a communal dining, like a senior living community or at a hospital, you'll need to be sure you offer a variety of different items, because people will span from all over the globe to come to your venue. So you want to be sure you can take care of them. So I agree with what you said, Chef. The boomers are coming. It's all about the generation that you're serving, and you must stay with the times in order to continue to offer their product.
Right. We have a lot more choices out there these days than we had, 20, 30 years ago, right? I mean, people aren't happy. Just go someplace else.
Yep, that's true. You're right. They will.
It's a different generation coming in the door, folks. And my generation will be different, and my kids' generation is going to be different, and it'll be very interesting to see where this all turns out. Hey, again, I think this is a little bit of rudimentary stuff for you, right, folks? But the final thing, we have our false bottom tartlet pans, and I just used a biscuit cutter to cut to the right size, pushed it up the sides a little bit, and then I docked it, right? I would blind bake these if I needed to, or again, with this recipe in particular, I just made the filling, added it to the pie, and it did take a considerable amount of time. It did take about 35, 40 minutes, even for small things like this. But you know what? I can do it yesterday for today. I can do it today for tomorrow. And so I have my starters ready to go, so the guests can come and they can just start eating when they get there. And I can work on the turkey, I can work on the side, the root vegetable, the bread pudding in this case. And then I can just put out a platter of various desserts or pumpkin pie, because that's the trend in my family, is pumpkin pie. And kind of just take the load off of myself, right? The holidays aren't supposed to be about working. They're supposed to be about spending time with family, friends, or let's just make life a little bit easier, right? Yeah.
Very good. So, Chef, I did want to just, I know we're getting close to our time. I just wanted to add that pumpkin also has vitamin C, fiber, and antioxidants. So there are a lot of great benefits to utilizing that pumpkin.
And too bad we only do it once a year for what, 2 months? Because come on, folks.
Yeah, I think the trend's getting out there with the pumpkin lattes and everything.
I was just getting ready to go there, because that pumpkin latte doesn't have any pumpkin in it, right, folks?
I do know that.
It's just the sugar, and then you got your cinnamon and your clove and your nutmeg, I mean, but look, I mean, it's been like the holiday traditions, right? Cinnamon, spices, rosemary and thyme and parsley, I mean, like, I don't think reinventing the wheel is necessary during the holiday. So this is just something, maybe you'll just take a little bit of something from this and enjoy your holiday season this year.
I do have another question from the audience, Chef.
Mm-hmm.
So it was back to the brie. It said, well, I have two questions actually, so I'll ask them in order. So the first question says, do you have to cut the rind off of the brie before wrapping in the pastry?
You don't, right? Okay. You don't have to. That is a personal preference. The mold that is on there, that is a natural part of the cheese making process. Dietetic people, CDMs, I mean, probiotics, right? James Forbes, North Country Charcuterie. Pick your audience here, folks, right? Some people just don't feel comfortable eating mold. I'm okay with it. But that was the feedback that he got from his company. Like, he would hand cure his sausages, and they would grow their white mold that was indigenous to the sausage making process, but people weren't buying it because they just weren't comfortable with it. You do whatever you're comfortable with. I wouldn't take the rind off of it.
Very good. And the last question, I know you mentioned earlier, we're just kind of flying by, no really specific recipes, but somebody did ask if they wanted to reproduce these. What's the best way to do it? Would there be a recipe available somewhere else? How could they reproduce some of the items that you've done today?
Oh, so I mean, technically everything I found was online, right? So I mean, follow the procedure for baking puff pastry. So the brie, there's plenty of YouTube videos out there to show you how to wrap brie properly. Talks about the temperature of your oven, because of course we would want our puff pastry to be in a hot oven, 425, maybe 400, depending on convection versus conventional, right? To get the color that you're looking for. So when I say there's no recipes, there's recipes out there. The bread pudding is a modification from the King Arthur. So again, type in savory bread pudding into your search engine and King Arthur is going to pop up there. And then of course, the pumpkin pie. I mean, now Milton and I were talking about 3-2-1, right? 3 parts flour, 2 parts water, 1 part, 2 parts fat, and then 1 part water. So that's your 3-2-1 for your pie crust. So if you want to play with pie crust on your own and form it and make it from scratch, it's a great skill to have, right? But the pumpkin pie filling itself, that's of course printed on the side of the can of Libby's pumpkin, right? So super easy recipe. I mean, you pretty much always make sure you whip your eggs a little bit before you start adding the rest of your liquids, kind of like I did with the bread pudding here, because what you'll end up with is a bunch of egg whites that didn't get incorporated properly, and then you end up with egg whites floating around in your bread pudding or on top of your puff pastry, right?
Well, great job, chef. I mean, everything looked amazing. I mean, I look forward to preparing these meals when my mom comes and visits for the holidays. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, with the crudité and the charcuterie, pick your pleasure on that. I like roasted peppers. I like artichokes. I love Kalamata olives. And then, like I said, North Country has some excellent sausages. And then stick with the healthy stuff here. Carrots, celery. You got some broccoli? Put some broccoli on there, right? And then for everything here, get your mustards, get your aiolis, get your dressings that you like, and get crazy with the cheeses too. Just because you have one thing of brie doesn't mean you can't get some Roquefort or a nice blue cheese or something like that. This is just a simple glimpse of the stuff that I wanted to do for you, but sometimes I end up getting a little overambitious.
No, chef, great job. Great job. We really appreciate everything. I think now we're going to pass it back to Jackie.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Well, thank you. A huge virtual round of applause as we thank Chef Adam and Dr. Milton. We appreciate you taking the time to share your insights on holiday inspiration and for representing ACF and ANFP communities today. Thank you. Thank you. I really wish I was there for a tasting, though, at this point. For everyone tuning in, please be on the lookout for an email with the recording of this session, and please do take time to complete the survey so that we can continue to offer educational opportunities that interest you. We invite you to join us on our next webinar, November 8th, as we'll celebrate Mexican gastronomy with a demo live from the Yucatan Peninsula. Please visit wearechefs.com to register. So on behalf of the ACF, thank you again for ANFP for your continued partnership and for collaborating with us today. And thank you all for joining us today. Happy holidays and seasonings greetings to you all.